You're welcome back to Joy News Prime. Now, if you live in Accra and its environs, you may be already experiencing some consistent or in some cases intermittent outages in the last few days. That's because the country's power producers are unable to produce enough to meet the current power demand of between 2,400 and 2,700. Now, figures obtained by Joy News shows a generation deficit of up to 1,000 megawatts, forcing distributors to ration power in parts of where demand is highest. We'll hear from some consumers shortly on what the experiences so far are. But first, let's look at the current situation in hard figures. Now, we have some views from the public on the intermittent outages in the last few days. Watch.
Oh, it has been occurring. My last was yesterday night. Actually, I took it around 9 a.m. in the morning. And it came somewhere 3 and went, I think, around 6. It came around 11. I live around Mateo Komas, Dansoman. My problem is, we are not saying they shouldn't take their light. At least they should inform us. You know, and the way the light fluctuates nowadays is not good at all. It keeps going and coming. You see your appliances, fridge light, air conditioning light just blinking, going on and off.
There has been a series of light off around, especially the place I stay, for instance. Well, it has been on for about 3 days now. We don't really know whether it is the normal doomsaw or whatever is going on. But the most annoying aspect of it is, at least you will not hear any communique from anybody saying, oh, maybe it's a fault that we are working or anything.
I'm just coming from Cape Coast, and yesterday we didn't have lights.
For how long?
For, let's say, 12 hours. When I was returning, it was still off. And we couldn't even watch the match because we have to use generators and a whole lot of issues.
So how is this affecting you?
I would say it's really affecting us because my phone has been off since morning.
So you had some power consumers there. Now, Ben Boache is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASEP, and he joins us on the line with his perspective on the situation at hand. Many thanks for your time. Now, how bad is the power situation?
Thank you, however. I'm not too sure the quantum of power that is being shared. I've been monitoring critical system, and it's not up to speed with real-time data. But I can understand the discomfort that the public is feeling at this point. And that is why we keep saying that if you're taking power off, you have to inform the consumer. Right. Once you do know that power will go off or there is a deficit in generation, the consumer ought to know, and that is the role of PDS. Okay. Once they get a signal from the generators and the transmission system,
right,
they have to let the consumer really know.
Right, Ben. Now, from where you stand, is it a cash problem or a technical problem?
I think it's fuel. From where I said, I understand that the fuel delivery delayed, and that affected some of the plants. Car Power doesn't have enough stock, but I understand they are taking deliveries now. The same with AXA. They are major producers of power. So they were down significantly, waiting fuel delivery. So it's a cyclical situation of persistent delays in delivery of fuel, which of course will be attributable to cash. If you have cash delivered on time to the suppliers, that allows them to plan adequately to be able to deliver the fuel on time. So it's fuel and ultimately money to buy the fuel.
All right, many thanks. That's Ben Boache, Executive Director of ASEP, and we will continue that conversation with my colleague Sandra Fenu of the Business Desk. We are understanding or hearing reports that government has paid some amount to settle its debt to the IPPs?
That is not confirmed yet, but that's what we are hearing, and we'll be talking about that. We'll be speaking to the chamber to see whether they know of this arrangement by government. But first, we have some breaking news actually, where Group Indom is actually suing government over debt owed them. We'll be doing that shortly, but we want to stay on the power issue. My name is Sandra Sinamapena. As always, I'm here for business, and we still want to stay on power issues. And 7 more days to a planned shutdown of power plants belonging to 6 independent power producers for failure by the Power Distribution Services, that's the PDS Limited, to settle debt, over $700 million debt owed them. But we understand the Finance Ministry and the Energy Ministries had met independent power producers earlier today over the debt settlement issues. We want to find out if that is really the case, and Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Independent Power Producers and Bulk Consumers, Eliklim Kwabla Apetobo, joins us live on the phone lines for an update on that meeting. Good evening, sir, and thanks so much for your time. All right, looks like we don't have him on the line, but we'll try as much as possible to get him back online. And good evening, Eliklim. Can you hear me? And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We understand that the chamber and some of your members met earlier today with the finance and then the energy ministries to resolve the issue. Is that the case?
No, none of our members with any government functionary to discuss the case.
So there was no meeting today. Is that what it is?
Yes, there wasn't any meeting. I had this information earlier. I confirmed from all the members, none of them was invited to any meeting.
Interesting. So how about claims that some payments have been made? Actually, our sources tell us that government is planning, or they have made proposal to pay some amount of money to you. Are you aware of that as well?
If planning, fine, but no payment has been effected.
All right, so you had an internal meeting today, I mean the chamber, with your stakeholders. What did you decide on? What was the outcome of that meeting?
Oh, our position has remained unchanged. Actually, difficult situation is not a good option for the members to go off anyway, but there is nothing they could do under the circumstance.
So it means that we have 7 more days, and if we don't hear from governments or PDS or ECG, because I think it's, you said yesterday, you spoke to us and you said it's more of a communication issue where the ECG is directing you to PDS and PDS is also directing you to the ECG, and government hasn't stepped in yet. So within 7 days, are you still planning to shut down?
Oh, like I said, it is not an issue of planning to shut down, but that is the real situation, that the plants cannot be operated anymore because we don't have the fund to fuel it. Yeah.
Well, help my viewers understand this. How did it work when PDS took over from ECG? Did they go with their liabilities and assets? Was there any communication sort of to tell you who was going to handle these debt issues?
Those are the challenges that we have, that there is not much information about what is going on. As to whether the liabilities or the PPA or whatever has been transferred, we are unaware. But I mentioned that prior to the takeover, ECG sought the consent of members to transfer their PPA. But PDS said that that did not happen. As we speak, I expect ECG to come out clear on position is, so that everyone knows where to go or where not to go.
All right, I'm grateful for your time, and we'll keep an eye on this developing story. We want to know what the outcome is, and hopefully we hear from governments on the developments. We want to do other stories tonight, and All right, so other stories now. Chief Executive of Bulk Distributed Company, that's our Energy Group, Abigail Haley, wants the Ministry of Energy to initiate a tax incentive scheme for private sector investors who express interest in partnering governments to establish the Petroleum Hub in the Western region. She's optimistic the move will attract more firms in the industry to support the largest oil and gas project. She spoke to Joy Business after a panel discussion on the Petroleum Hub project at the Ghana Energy Summit in Accra. Here's Ebenezer Sabote's report.
The Petroleum Hub project is expected to be a game changer for Ghana's oil and gas development. It's been a subject for discussion at this year's Energy Summit as stakeholders deliberate on the opportunities of such a project and how to make it successful. The project will be a public-private partnership and is estimated to generate about 750,000 jobs for indigenous firms and international corporations in the country. To make this successful, Chief Executive of AI Energy Group, an industry player, Abigail Haley, is calling on government to make available tax incentives for private firms that will partner government in the project.
If you look at what happened in the free zones project, companies operating in the free zones were tax exempted from import duties as well as corporate tax. So if these can all be introduced with regards to this Petroleum Hub vision, I think it will go a long way to help the private sector.
Can we get the benefits that will cover the cost that will incur as a result of this tax?
Private sector entrepreneurs could then channel these monies back into the business as equity. They could also take advantage of the minimization of the initial cost of funding and probably not go for a whole lot of funds from the banks, thereby reducing interest charges and all of that. And all of this could accrue to be equity in the company.
On his part, Managing Director of the Tema Oil Refinery, Isaac Osei, suggests though the project is a laudable idea, it must be examined critically before execution.
I think that this whole thing should be phased out. We shouldn't rush it. We should take it one step at a time, depending on the demand for the products that the hub will generate, and also for the services that will come with it. So really, it is something that all of us, including ladies and gentlemen of the press who are here, to ensure that we phase this thing out properly so that the country will benefit.
The two-day event is under the theme Harnessing Opportunities in Ghana's Energy Sector, Making Local Participation a Practical Reality. Ebenezer Sabote's reports for Joy Business.
All right, let's continue with some breaking news. And the news is that Group Indum has sued government over debt which has left the company unable to pay investors. You'll recall that the company has been under pressure for some time now, with investors hitting the streets to protest over their locked up funds. And this news is just coming in. I want to hear from the company, and the lawyer for Group Indum is Justice Sremsai, and he joins me over the phone line. Good evening, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners.
Can you confirm or deny this lawsuit?
Indeed, we have issued a number of writs against three ministries of government: the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and then the Attorney General, in addition to some private contractors. Our claim is quite straightforward. Government owns our clients and the contractors that we have funded. Government has paid some, and got to a point where they stopped paying. We have tried all possible means to retrieve our money from government contractors, but we have not succeeded. We are left with no other option but to use the court process to recover our money.
How much are we talking about here?
Well, we are still calculating, but as of now, we have estimate about 2 billion Ghana cedis.
2 billion Ghana cedis.
Yes, precisely.
Okay, and so we also understand that you've actually suspended services to some government agencies. Is that correct? And what kind of services are we talking about here?
I'm not aware of any of that. That should not be. That is not part of the legal services we are rendering. So what we are doing is that we are taking steps to recover the money that are owed to us by government and some contractors. And we expect that the court process will deliver that to our clients.
All right, thank you very much for your time. We've been speaking to Justice Remsai, who is a lawyer for Group Indom, and the breaking news is that Group Indom is actually suing government for debt owed them. That has actually left the company unable to pay its investors. That's how we wrap up for the first part of business. But when I come back, we'll be talking about the AFCON, football, and money. Stay tuned. Hello again, you're still watching Joy News Prime, and we want to do something slightly different tonight. We are talking about football and money, and the spotlight is on the ongoing African Cup of Nations tournament in Egypt. Ghana is out, meaning that we've lost out on the cash prize, which is the ultimate prize of $4.5 million. And so what is also accounting for low attendance at the tournament, the empty stadia, the financial implications for organizers of the tournament. The man who knows it all is here to break it down for us. Gary R. Smith, welcome to Business and Not Sports.
Thank you. They go hand in hand.
All right, so first of all, let's talk about Ghana.
Yeah.
The ultimate prize is supposed to be $4.5 million.
For the winner.
We are out. Does that mean we've lost everything, nothing for us at all?
No, it doesn't mean that. There's a breakdown of what the winners of the African Cup of Nations will get.
Okay.
Same for the runners-up and also the quarterfinalists and the semi-finalists. Even those who exit at the group stage will get something. The figures for that are not open. So what we do know is that before the tournament, the Confederation of African Football gave each of the 24 countries just about $270,000 for preparations, because some of the federations and countries don't have money to be able to prepare. So some of the teams use that for campaign and so on and so forth. And Ghana also got that amount.
So we're getting something.
Yes, you get it.
Okay, but we don't know how much you're getting.
Yes.
So actually walk us through what the prize money is for the nations, and I think we have it on the screens now. So if you can show us what.
So the total prize money to be shared among the best 8 teams, that is the teams for from the quarterfinals going, which is where Ghana has failed to go, is $14.2 million. That is up $2 million from what we had in 2017. In 2017, that was $12.2 million. That's how much they shared. So now, in terms of the champions, if you won, like Sandra intimated, you win $4.5 million. And of course, this, which is part of the argument a lot of people have been saying, that Ghana spends too much money on the Nations Cup in terms of the revenue inflow argument as well. For the runners-up, $2.5 million. So if you are second, that's what you get. If you are in the semi-final, that's the last 4, as they call it in football, you get $2 million. And the quarter finalists, which is where what Ghana would have gone if we had
but we weren't there,
would have been $1 million each.
Okay, interesting. I would have wished that we win the 4.5 million, but unfortunately we don't have that. But let's talk about the tournament itself. Attendance has been really poor, empty stadia, and you have the host nation as well. Even their games is nothing to write home about. What do you think is accounting for the low attendance that we've seen in the tournament?
So to provide some perspective, in the African Cup of Nations, it's quite normal to have lower attendances for games other than that of the host nation for obvious reasons. Now, generally in Africa, classic factors like flight costs and intra-African travel. The difficulty in intra-African travel means that it's always difficult for countries to be able to go and support their national teams in numbers. So, for example, yesterday, the government of Ghana sent only 100 supporters in addition to the very few that we had there already as well. So, Egypt, as a country, actually had quite a better number of supporters coming in because of the Middle East and North African sub-region, the ease of transport in that region. So, again, for example, Air Maroc had subsidized fares for people going from the major cities, Casablanca, Fez, Rabat, to Egypt to go and watch the Cup of Nations. They had a promo in this period, which is why you saw quite a number of Moroccan fans in there. Algeria also, because they are a neighboring country, are able to have a sub-regional airline to have more lucrative fares. Now, the attendances in Egypt themselves can be attributed to one classic factor, pricing.
Of the tickets?
Of the tickets.
Okay.
The organizers, unfortunately, and you've seen that in certain sports and certain competitions around the world, even in Russia, the last World Cup, it was a problem because the locals were priced out of the tickets and the tournament. The minimum wage for Egypt right now was increased in March from to $116 a month, which computes to just about $4 a day. Now the tickets for this African Cup, the average is $40 to $50.
Unbelievable.
With the lowest being about $30.
I see. Quickly before we go, so what's the financial implication for the host nation, for organizers, and also will you say that AFCON has become not lucrative and not attractive? And so, what's the way forward?
So it's a very good question, because it's a question that is being grappled with organizers around the world. The International Olympic Committee right now are even struggling to find people to host Olympic Games because the amount they put in is not equal to what they get. So for the implications for the host nation, it means that they've made a loss because people are not going to buy tickets. Now, the great thing also is that for the sponsors, nobody wants to see empty stadia, so they are going to be wagging their figure at their
Thank you very much, Gary Al Smith. I'm sure we have a lot to talk about in sports, which is coming up shortly after business. All right, so the commodity markets now, and crude oil went for $64.31 a barrel after a 20-cent gain. Precious mineral gold traded at $1,396.97 an ounce, while cocoa sold at $2,527 a ton. The market update is next in commodity news. News tonight, Marriott faces a $124 million fine for failing to protect customer data, the second major penalty proposed this week by UK regulators. Details in international business news.
Nigeria's 2019-2020 cocoa crop is threatened by an attack of the fungal black pod disease due to the wetness created by the persistent rains in the main cocoa growing areas. The disease makes pods shrivel and trees wither and has been reported in most farms in the southeastern cocoa belt around the cocoa trading center. Marriott faces a $124 million fine for failing to protect customer data, the second major penalty proposed this week by UK regulators under Europe's tough new privacy rules. The hotel chain said in a regulatory filing Tuesday that Britain's Information Commissioner's Office intends to impose a £99 million fine under the General Data Protection Regulation. Uber will take at least a few years to become profitable, according to one of the ride-hailing firm's top executives. Uber's Chief Technology Officer Thuan Pham said at a tech conference in Hong Kong that the industry right now is very competitive.
Grateful for allowing me into your homes for the business news with me, Sandra Esinam Apeno. There's more stories on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Have a great evening and see you same time tomorrow.